Hello, dear friends, and welcome to our podcast dedicated to sight reading through the lens of the historically informed performance practice. My name is Darina Ablogina.
And I'm Sébastien.
Today's episode is dedicated to war. War is a process of dehumanization and affects us at every level of our existence, even if we are geographically distant from it. War brings us to the realization that murders happen every day. We become more accustomed to it, and this is unacceptable. And we believe that we should talk about this as much as possible. Today we invited Ukrainian musicians and people helping them to talk about their experience.
My name is Hanna Horobets. I'm from Kiev.
And what are you doing here in Basel?
Just visiting, and I'm looking for inspiration and some peace, maybe.
How would you describe the day when you discovered that the war started?
On the 24th of February, it was sort of shock. Even if I and my friends, we were talking about it, there will be a war. We were sure about it, but we didn't realize that it will be just in 2 days after our talking. My plans, I wanted to prepare for some master classes and competitions with my friend, chamber music, and after the war started, of course, we forgot about playing music. I didn't play piano for 3 weeks because of the depression and shock about the news. And the second day after the war started, it was missile hit, just 2 streets near my house. So it was like stress every day. And after the 1 week, I decided that for my mental health and for safety reason, we need to leave the Kiev. We waited for so long because some people left Kiev on the first day. We thought it will not be so horrifying like it is. So we waited, and my parents they wanted to stay in Kiev, and they stayed. Yeah. So me and my sister, we left Ukraine, but we hope that we will come back soon. First week it was really tough because some people were panicking, and it was sort of lack of food and some water, but in some weeks the situation was much better, and people slightly calmed down. Yeah. What more? We have 2 bridges or more. Bridges in Kiev, they were locked. So me and my parents, we were living on the right side of Kiev. My sister lived on the left side, and in some days we couldn't reach each other. We were allowed to talk just by phones and by the internet. It was maybe some sort of hardcore in the center of Kiev where my sister lived. So she spent almost a week she spent in the basement, because it was shooting every day. In our district were sort of calm despite some missile hits. But the most horror were around Kiev, Bucha, Irpin, these places. So it was I would say, so safe in Kiev because Russian troops cannot go through these cities.
And your parents are still there? And can you communicate with them?
Yes, I phone them every day, and I'm checking if everything's okay. I'm reading the news every day, and sometimes when I see the name of my district in the news, it's like a little bit panicking. But after that, I call my parents asking if they're okay, everything. And I hear good news, so I like.
And with whom are you staying here in Switzerland?
I am living with a guest family, Swiss people. They are helping a lot. They are musicians. Yeah. So I feel pretty comfortable here and safe.
And can you play at all?
Yeah, I have instrument in my apartment.
Also, I wanted to ask you, while you were fleeing from Ukraine, from Kiev, because I heard from some friends that were there also and picking up their parents that the amount of people was so big and like there were a lot of queues and people had to wait for many hours.
In the future, I will not want to repeat my evacuation day because it was 10 hours in train, sitting on my bags because it was so many people that people were everywhere in the corridors, on the chairs, and it took so long by the train to reach Lviv because it was very dangerous, and they decided to find another way. It was much longer, and we closed the windows so nobody sees our train. After that, we found a volunteer who could pick us to the border. It also took 2 hours after that, 10 hours without any break. It was like we reached Lviv and went to the car and went to the border because it was not allowed to stay outside after 10 o'clock. And of course, the most hard part was on the border. We arrived in the evening, and usually it is there are more people in the evening, like every day. And if I remember correctly, it was like maybe 1,000, maybe more of them, and we were staying in the line for another 12 hours in the night. So it was like 24 hours without sleep and almost without any food, and we were staying outside. It was cold winter, cold summer, but it was snowing in the night, yeah. So we crossed the border with Poland around 6 o'clock in the morning. And also volunteers helped us a lot because it's maybe would be much harder.
What would you recommend to the people who would like to help? How can they help? And for instance, to the people who fled from, who escaped Ukraine, and to the people who are outside and who are inside, how can people help?
For people inside, you can donate, you can look for the websites for volunteers, because it's always need equipment, food, medicine, some clothes. For people who left Ukraine, also medicine, also food, accommodation, good company, because we are almost stressed. Some people left their relatives, their friends in Ukraine, they're very worried about them. So sort of a family and friendship, I think it would be necessary. Because I'm living here in Switzerland around 1 month, and mostly time I'm alone because guest families, they are working, they're like normal people, and sometimes it is very lonely when you are in the new place and you are like alone.
And also, maybe we should not forget about animals that were left by their owners, because the owners escaped, and there are lots of animals like cats and dogs that remained hungry and without any support. And I think it's important to also to donate some shelters that are trying to rescue those pets.
And also to give accommodation to people with animals, because in Poland the hotels are there, they allowed people to live with their dogs or their cats, so it was very good.
Yeah, maybe if you can name us some organizations, we can put links in the description of our episode.
So I was thinking, because, in musicians we plan a lot and we think a lot ahead. And can you do that at the moment with knowing like what's going on? And
so we were joking around with my friends about planning, because after pandemic started, our plans all were ruined. We learned how to plan maybe 1 month further, some weeks further. When the war started, you cannot plan anything like in 1 day, because you don't know what will happen. What about my musician plans? They were ruined completely, and now I need to decide a new way how I can manage this situation, because I told you earlier that we wanted to like some competitions, some master classes, but now it's I don't know if it is possible. Maybe next year, maybe in 2 years, I don't know. And also I told you that for 3 weeks I didn't play the instrument. I just didn't want. It was no strength, no need, and I started to play piano only when I arrived to Berlin for some days, and after that here in Switzerland. And now I'm back into my routine to practice all day 2 instruments. I'm also an arranger, and to write some arrangements also. So music came back to my life. I started to play chamber music. It was a Schumann sonata, a violin sonata, and Debussy, a violin sonata. Yeah, so I was working for our future plans that were ruined. And the music was the same as my mood, so it's like some therapy for me.
Our second guest, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Dmytro Kokoshinsky. I'm harpsichordist. I'm studying in Schola Cantorum in Basel. I'm from Kyiv. I lived there for my 20 years. And since 2017, I'm living here, studying with Francesco Corti. doing my master.
So I wanted to ask you about the day when you discovered that the war started. It was 24th of February. What have you been doing? And maybe you had plans. How did you see your future before the war started and how it changed?
Well, for me, it was clear that something can happen after 2014 when Donbass and Crimea were occupied, parts of Donbass. Since then, the probability of this happening was quite high, and we had every year quite some news about moving of the Russian troops along the border, etc. In December, I understood that it will happen almost for sure when they did in Russia the governmental regulation of the mass graves with pictures, with how to place the corpses, how many of them should be in the bags, how many not, what is the deepness of the trenches, how deep it should be, etc., all with pictures, also for radioactive bodies. And it was clear that the country, which is not preparing for any sort of war, military operation, wouldn't do this. And then on the 23rd of February, I think, in the night, Zelensky, our president, he spoke in Russian to the Russian soldiers, asking for not to do the mistake, because it would cost a lot for them as well. And then I understood that, okay, tomorrow or after tomorrow it will start. And the 24th of February it started. I got calls from my parents. They heard the explosions in Kyiv. They were they bombed all the airports around, and they were horrified. And well, the plans, they were all cancelled because I had some projects, I had some concerts to do. But I started to try to convince my parents that they should leave Kyiv. They're pensioners and they're retired. It's better for them to be with me. So in 2 days they started their way out, and I went to Poland and I met them in the border. They had a terrible trip, 3 days long, almost 35 hours on the border. Part of them standing in the cold, part of them standing in the bus, 28 hours standing in the bus because there was no seats. Back then there was thousands and thousands of people crossing the border, but they succeeded. They still are in well, it's psychologically hard. You leave the place, you have all your belongings, and of course many relatives stayed, and we were always trying to keep in touch with them, which was not always possible. My uncle, because my mother's house is in Bucha, sadly famous now, and my uncle was living there. It was the house of my grandmother. He was telling horrible stuff. There was also around a week when we didn't have contact with him. Before, he was telling about people shot on the streets. My cousin, who was also living there but left earlier, she was telling about her best friend killed, about girls being raped. So everything what we got to know much later, I heard about it earlier. It was horrifying, especially when you see all the pictures and it was visualized. My uncle, who was changing the shelters from time to time because we had signs where the shelter is, the Russians and Chechen troops, they were coming there and trying to get through. They were, one of the places was old bakery. It's quite a big building, and they had shelter with pretty solid doors. the Russian and Chechen troops demanding for the people to come out. They didn't, so they were shooting through the doors. They were sick enough. They didn't go through back then. It was the early days. It was the beginning of March. They were hiding. It's horrible. He succeeded to leave. My mother's sister, she couldn't. She had a heart attack year before. She was in a horrible state. She already before she couldn't walk freely, and she was speaking calmly, slowly, as it is in a recovery process after the heart attack. And she had more than a week basically without the food. And somehow there was no contact, there was no phone connection, there was no internet, no connection with her, no electricity. But we somehow managed to contact the unknown lady on Facebook from a couple of streets away, who managed to go and take her, and she fed her, and she survived. She's now in a secure place, recovering. But it was horrible times. And the moment when you see the pictures from the photos from the streets, where I, as a child, was riding bicycle or something, playing with my friends when I was 7, 8 years old, and you see there just tons of corpses, parts of the bodies, and destroyed armored vehicles. This is unbelievable. Yeah, this is so. Yes, somehow I was understanding that the war was coming. But you can't be prepared. You can't be prepared. Yeah.
And what is it like to be far away from that, and far away from that when it started? How do you not being there?
It is a horrible feeling when you have your friends and family there, and you're very limited in the possibilities to help. For me, this feeling of unity of the nation is, I know it, because in 2013-14, as a student, me, my friends, my parents, my colleagues, musicians, other people, we were all on Maidan, on the revolution. I came there on the second day, and we stayed there till the very, very, very end in February. And now, of course, you feel the guilt of not being there. Meanwhile, you understand, while speaking with your friends, with what the army need, with what the people need. I was searching for the possibilities to help financially, when people are collecting money for the different things for the armor or medicaments, etc. Also, there was a possibility we were doing the charity concerts, and possibly I can do maybe more than standing there with a gun, because I don't have enough knowledge for that. But it is very hard not to be in the community with people who are so devoted for our common future.
I also wanted to ask you about the music. Maybe what was the piece that you played, or could you even play your instrument? Because we spoke with Hanna, and she said she could not play piano for 3 weeks after the war started. And maybe you have a piece of music that you have been listening over and over again.
Well, what I was listening over and over again was, well, not over and over, but constantly the news. And that was more or less everything that was in the headphones on my way to Poland and back. The day the war started, well, the war started much earlier, but this the big one. I had to play with an orchestra a concerto of Durante in a ridiculous thing to do. Very, very simple and very kind, naive, nice piece. The rehearsal was cancelled. I didn't play for some weeks. First, I met my parents. I brought them to Italy. We stayed there where my wife is, and I didn't touch the instrument. My teacher recommended me to take the C-moll partita. And after several weeks of Bach, and after 24th of February, that was a piece which was going very well together with war. It's also very interesting how the music gets new senses. I was speaking with many people when there was the first days, and they had planned concerts, and they were doing some cantatas. The texts get new senses. And this is very impressive. The senses are enlarging.
And so how do you, knowing the reality at the moment and your reality and the reality of your homeland, like how can you plan a future for yourself, or how do you see your own personal future in music or in your life?
We had these talks with my friends. Is it pointless to do music now? Well, it's not, because this is exactly the opposite of the horror and unhumanized doings which are happening in Ukraine. The culture always reacts on such happenings, and it is important to continue and not to become just helpless. And we need to take ourselves in our hands and continue to do what we can do the best, and that can help our people as well. Simply, even as simple as doing the charity concerts, speaking about this in the concerts, letting people know this feeling of unity with all the people here in Europe, in all the world, people supporting us. This is what is really inspiring and what really gives the faith in the future.
Thank you very much for sharing. Thanks.
Hi, yes, I'm Manuel Wagner. I'm the musical leader from the music school in Bad Säckingen. And I play trumpet for myself. I'm a jazz trumpet player.
I discovered from my friends that you helped to go to Ukraine and bring people from the war situation in Ukraine. What have you seen there? And how did you drive there and give the impression what is happening there?
For me, it was a fast decision that I drove to Warsaw. We didn't drive to Ukraine because it was not necessary. I have a trombone colleague from Ukraine, and I wondered how is it going and how is it going his family, and I telephoned him and I asked him, and then I invited him to my house and said, tell something about the war and your, yes, how is it going, or perhaps you don't want to tell anything. And we spent a little time together, and I cooked something, and we can play a little football with my kids. And so he came and we talked a lot, and he gave us some impressions. I asked, how is it with your family, and how does it feel to have contact, but you can't really help? So he told me that it's not easy for his parents, and So he's trying to get his mother out from their hometown. I said yes. Perhaps we can we can drive with my car, and I would help you if I can. And he could organize a bus. A ticket, and so they could drive to Warsaw, and he hadn't a driver's license, so I told him we need another friend who can drive with me, and so we drove to Poland, and yes, it was for me a good thing to can help something. Not everybody feels helpless. Yes, you can give some money, or you can say somebody, if you know someone who needs help, tell me. And by this way, I had someone I like and I want to help and I can help. So we drove for 2 days. We spent one night in Warsaw and met his family and the cat, and so they were very happy, I think. And it was second, third week of the war, I think. So there was just the beginning of many people came to Poland, and we had some little impressions from the situation. And when I now see in the television what's going on, it's very hard, because now I'm happy, so we could help so early, and you get another view on the whole history, what's now happening.
And what have you seen in Poland? Were there a lot of people running away, and what was your impression of the atmosphere that you have seen in Poland?
When we have driven on the street, the nearer you came to the frontier, the more cars you saw where you thought there are people who are going to the frontier. They want to help you. You get some buses or Lastwagen, big camions, and they had the flags on it, and there's solidarization for the Ukraine. And this time you didn't see so much real facts or real a lot of people. The morning when we left Warsaw, we passed the train station, and there we saw a lot of cars, a lot of buses, a lot of people. But I thought this way it was early, and you got a little impression who of what will be and now is. So we had luck to get them early out of Ukraine.
And what will be your advice for the people who would like to help in this situation and they also feel helpless and they don't know what to do and how to help? What would you recommend?
I recommend to look after personal contacts. So our colleague, we said, tell us what to do. Tell us about the history of other people who came or come to Germany or want to come. There are people, friends of mine, who ask me now because they know I have a contact, and so I try to give them to other people. I think it's a good thing to spend money to help with money on really serious organizations. So it's a first good thing to make. And if you want to make more, you have to serve the personal contact. And I think there are many people who come now. I made a telephone to from the cities here in Germany, or the Bad Säckingen and the Landkreis. We are searching the contacts for musicians, people or kids who want to have instruments, who played in Ukraine an instrument and want to play here, or there are some who have online lessons with their teachers in Ukraine, and if we can organize some instruments for the kids, then we are happy. And if someone have instruments or ideas how you can help, then ask someone like me who works at a music school.
So maybe it's a good announcement to make that the music school in Bad Säckingen, guys, if you would like to help with music instruments or just get in touch, and if you are from Ukraine and you would like to play a music instrument, or if you are studying at a music school and you would like to continue or to lend an instrument, then maybe you can contact Manuel, and you will find a way. And maybe we can also put the link to your music school in the description of our episode.
Yes.
So maybe one question. Do you have a piece of music that you can associate with this time? Maybe when you were driving to Poland, you were listening to something, or maybe when you came back, you were there was a piece of music in your head that you can remember.
There's not really a music piece because when we've driven, we talked a lot. I got 2 new friends with this action. Ilya told me he had to play some concerts while he was trying to get out his parents of the Ukraine, and he told me that it's very hard to play some special pieces of music. And so it was. There was 3 musicians in the car for 48 hours, and we didn't hear any music because we talked so much, and so I have this is special for me. So we talked a lot about music, of our lives, of our impressions, history, and culture. After that, I thought about that. Then I thought, yes, we're 3 musicians and we didn't hear any music because we had to speak so much.
Thank you very much. I have so much admiration to you when I heard about this. Thank you. My heart is full of gratitude. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maria Morozova. I live in Switzerland since 2008. I was studying in Schola, and then I was studying also organ in Lucerne. So now I'm working, playing concerts.
Where are you coming from originally?
From a small town in the middle of Ukraine. It's called Svetlovodsk. It's a Kirovograd region. Now at this moment of the war, this small town is quite calm. And we have a lot of refugees from different cities, from Kharkiv, Kherson, Donetsk, Sumy. My parents left that small town because we never were sure that the calm situation will continue in this town. So now my parents are with us here in Basel, and we are very happy that they are safe.
Maybe you could tell about your experience of the 24th of February when the war started. What have you been doing? Which plans did you have? And how your plans changed with the whole war situation?
We were expecting the invasion any moment. I was talking to my parents and I told them, you have to leave. We were 2 months before. We knew that something is coming. My parents, and I think many people in Ukraine, they couldn't believe in it. They didn't want to think that something like this will happen, that one day they wake up and they will hear that the war just have started. So I woke up in the morning with the message that it started. I called immediately to my parents and there was panic. And I couldn't believe, actually. Well, we knew that it's going to happen, but this is the level of shock when you don't understand that it's real. And then I started to see all the messages, I started to call all my friends, and I even cannot imagine what they experienced at that moment. Being there, being in Kiev, being in Sumy, like my cousin, my nephews, they were basically they were first who heard the explosions. They were first who saw the tanks coming, crossing the border, and they had to leave their homes, their town to be safe some way in the village, or I don't know.
But you also mentioned before that of the experience of your cousin where like there was just 10 minutes to leave basically because there was this green corridor, let's say, that like Russian soldiers decided to give to people in order to leave. Could you tell about her experience?
That was much later when my cousin was already saved. They are now actually in Canada, by the way. I'm very happy. And only now I could talk to them because then I was not able to contact them. There was no connection, nothing. And then she told me all the horror they passed through. Somebody from our family, they had to leave. The Russian troops came into the bunker and they told, you have 10 minutes. You have to leave now. And they just had to take everything they have, the kids, the dogs, the cats, and to escape. And those 10 minutes were just for life. But when they were running, even the women which couldn't drive, they had to sit in the car and drive quickly, as quick as possible. And the moment when of those 10 minutes, the Russians were jumping on the car, throwing the stones, shouting, blaming, laughing, shouting in the air. It was. I think it was extremely horrible experience. What these people had at that moment.
And you also said before that, when we were talking a bit before our interview, that the kids now when they are playing, they are pretending they're playing war with their toys.
Well, that's true. My nephews, they are traumatized and they play these normal games which normally kids have to play with toys, and they just in these games this toy is killing another toy, then with explosion something is just destroyed, and so the kids are actually very much traumatized. For us, being here in this environment, too far away from alarms, too far away from explosions, from bombs, we even cannot experience this horror which people are passing through.
Yes, so I also wanted to ask you, before when we met, I think it was still the first days of the war, and we met in a cafe here in Basel and we talked about it, and you told me about one lady that I think lives in your hometown, and that she was supporting Putin, even though she lives in Ukraine and like she knows what's happening inside. Somehow an interesting and horrible phenomena that is happening, that mostly it's women, right, that are older than 50, and sometimes they tend to, like in Russian environment, they tend to support Putin because they see him as a strong man, things like that. For some reason, they're in love with him. So how do you think now is the situation in Ukraine developing, and those people who were maybe supporting, how do you think their opinion changed?
Well, I think the opinion have changed dramatically, actually, because even those which were pro-Putin, pro-Russian, even Russians which are living in Ukraine, they have changed their minds completely.
But why do you think it's happening that some people, they were becoming pro-Putin, and like this woman that you were telling about, why she would support Putin? Do you think, is there any logic in that?
Well, I think the people see changes and they see what Russia can bring in the country, which was very peaceful. In Ukraine, there were problems, economical problems. We had many other political problems, but we were a peaceful country. We didn't want any war. Since Russia came into Ukraine with war, probably everything have changed. All people just had to change their life. Many people just died, and when even those pro-Russian women and men which live in Ukraine, they see all these changes which Russia brings into our country, completely sovereign, independent country. Then they don't want to change their lives. They want to stay as it was. And they don't support now ideology of Putin. And actually, what I experienced, I'm a Soviet kid. Let's say I was born in Soviet Union. I know what it is. I was 11 years living in Soviet Union. Because it is childhood. It's clear, but I know that we don't want to. Ukraine doesn't want to. Ukrainian people, we don't want to be under Russian power anymore. We want to be independent. And I live here already for so many years, and I cannot imagine that my country will be again under this regime, under this sick mentality, let's say. We want to say what we think. We want to, if we don't agree with something, we just want to go out and say that. And not to be kicked out, not to be prisoner or something like this. We just want to be free with our ideas, with our speeches. So, and as soon everything started, my husband told me that no, Ukraine really have to find a compromise, and they really have to go for conversation with each other, Russia and Ukraine. And I told him, and I know our mentality. I know Ukrainians would never go back to a regime. I know that Ukrainians will experience the most horrible thing. The land will be burned. Many people will die. But I know that our soldiers, our people will anyway fight and fight and fight and fight till the last person. The other day I was walking in the woods. It was beautiful, nice, peaceful. And I cannot imagine how other people just have this beautiful spring. They just hear all this horrible bombings, horrible airplane sound. And I thought, you can cut this later, that I prefer, you can cut this later definitely if you want, that I prefer to die than to be a Russian. I really cannot imagine myself being a Russian person.
You mean under this regime?
Yeah, it's like that something what has happened in Crimea, something what has happened in Donbass. I cannot imagine myself that somebody is coming to my family saying, "No, you have to get a Russian passport." I prefer than to, I don't know, if I would live there in Ukraine and somebody would come to my house and say, now you have to get Russian passport or you are enemy of the country, so you're going to go with us now. So then I don't know, I prefer just to be prisoner or to die or whatever, but not to get that opportunity of being Russian. I'm sorry. No, I totally understand. Actually, I understand your feelings. Actually, that's why we took my parents here, because if something like this would happen, I don't want my parents getting Russian passport and being obliged to, okay, if you don't get Russian passport, you don't get your pension anymore, you don't get your salary anymore. So either you get Russian passport or
That's what is happening now with some Ukrainian refugees that are taken to Russia, right?
Yeah. And I think that's what is in Kherson. Kherson now is under occupation. What's going to happen with those people? Because they don't want to be in occupation.
They don't have any other choice, right?
Yeah, they don't have any other choice, really.
Yeah, if you don't have money to run away, to take your kids, or you have relatives that are not able to move, old grandmothers, like parents, then you have to stay with them.
You have to stay there, yeah.
Okay, my last question is maybe about the music that is associated now for you with the war, and maybe your relationship with music. How would you describe that during the war?
First of all, I couldn't play music for a long time since the war have started. Now it's already a bit easier. Now I can already play something. Before I was just crying. I don't know. It's extremely interesting. I think it's happening with us musicians. How much we're connected with the sound which we reproduce, and emotions which we have. It's sometimes could be just ridiculous, but it's happening like this. If you play some music, you just cry. It's probably imagination what is happening in my own country, and it is interesting paradox, I wonder. But now I can play a little bit already. I played Susanne and jour. It's really representing exactly what is happening now in Bucha, Irpin.
With Ukrainian women.
With Ukrainian women. So the story of Susanne and is extremely just coming close to the stories of many women which were raped, murdered, and So when I play this music, of course I cry. But I wonder that was the same long time ago, and now it's happening again and again the same. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Maria, for your story.